What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Bettin N Boozin on the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Roscoe, and we head back down south this week as we cover everyone's favorite track, including one man, of course, at Ohio State's favorite track, Gulfstream Park, and they have 4 total stakes, and we're going to cover the late pick 5 for you guys like a glove tonight. Welcome in, everyone. Thank you guys all so much for joining the show. I greatly appreciate it. Of course, if you guys are enjoying the podcast tonight, please go down below the video player, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We would greatly appreciate it because not only is it one completely free to do and the best way to help out our channel, but it also pushes these podcasts and others out into YouTube's algorithm to hopefully bring more horse players to the HHH Racing Podcast. And of course, for that, we thank you. You can see scrolling on the bottom side of the screen right now the normal podcast schedule that we have every single week, every single Tuesday, 9:30 p.m. Eastern is Pacific Horseplayers with Noah, Ryan, and Jackson. Of course, covering everything that is to do with the West Coast. That is Tuesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. Normally, Bettin N Boozin, our show is every single Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Of course, the change of date moved us to Thursday this week, which is normally reserved for Picks and Ponies with Howard, Pete, and Paul. They covered a fantastic Pennsylvania Derby Day card. So please tune into that if you guys are interested, because that's definitely going to be the card of the weekend, but not too far behind. It's a little far behind, but not too far behind is this card at Gulfstream Park. Again, guys, 4 stakes, late pick 5, where it's very competitive, lots of big fields, and there's no really for sure winner in any of these last 5 races. So looking forward to covering this one for you guys tonight. Of course, you can always listen to all of our podcasts here on YouTube, but you can also listen to them in audio form over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. If you're more of an audio listener, please go rate, review, and subscribe over there. Of course, TikTok and Instagram at Bettin N Boozin Podcast. So if you are into more short form content, I post very short clips of my picks of the week, updates for the podcast, and all that stuff over there. So if you're interested, go over there at Bettin N Boozin Podcast on both TikTok and Instagram. Of course, we have the power picks as always, guys. Since February of 2021, price plays, spot plays, pick 5 grids, everything you need to be successful on any given horse racing Saturday. The HHH Racing Podcast has you covered with the power picks. As I mentioned, it's sent to you every single Saturday, and you get all of that mentioned for only $4.99 per weekend. It's billed through Patreon monthly, so it's $21.60. But again, as humbly as we can say here, for over 4.5 years, we've been well in the profit. They really do pay for themselves, guys. So again, it's all done through Patreon, patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast. Link is also in the description below. And if you want to see previous editions of these power picks before you buy them, or you just want to learn more about the podcast, please head on over to HHHRacingPodcast.com. Guys, as I mentioned, we're covering the late pick 5 tonight. So even though all stakes will not be covered in the late pick 5, I'll still give them a quick mention at the start of the show. Races 7 through 11 is what we're covering. So if you have those PPs in front of you, feel free to flip over to race number 7, and we will get started here in a second. But of course, to get us started, we need to bring on our co-hosts and one little kind of special guest, I guess, at this point. But of course, you have the host of Pacific Horseplayers and the fill-in now at this point on Bettin N Boozin, good friend Noah Maher. And guys, how can we cover a Gulfstream Park card on this podcast without having the man himself, Mr. South Beach, Charlie Freeman? Gentlemen, what's going on? Charlie, welcome back, man. Hope all school has been all good.
Yeah, no, busy, but it's good to be back. And I'm happy to align this way because as we were talking before the show, Wednesdays are always my toughest day with 4 classes, and Thursdays are much lighter. So the fact that it works out Gulfstream on a Thursday with the boys, I mean, can't really ask for much better than that.
Yeah, I mean, look, man, you always get first dibs, especially once I heard we were covering Gulfstream Park this week. I'm like, all right, well, I got to give him at least a shout, because if he can do it at all, I'm sure he's going to want to come on. Noah, of course, not to give you a short trip. You guys had a show earlier this week as well, minus, Ryan Anderson, because that guy, has bigger things to do than obviously be on a podcast on Tuesday nights. But I hope your week's been well, man, too, as well.
Yeah, it's been good. That Churchill card that we covered on Tuesday night with myself and Jackson, pretty good card. Not a ton of open fields and stuff, but some pretty good horses in competitive races, I thought. Kyle, I knew you weren't referring to me when you said special guest, but it's good to have our boy Chuckles on the airwaves.
It's always nice to have Chuckles on the airwaves. However, it does make these podcasts 10 to 15 minutes long, of course. But of course, that's the best part about it. Guys, I see a bunch of people in the chat. Greatly appreciate everyone. Bob Segura says, Churchill Downs running an Eagle Rare Pour. I'm ready. Cheers to you, Bob. Of course, we have the Nectar of the Gods tonight. So hopefully you guys are all doing well. Katie, of course, is here early. And my mother, Mom, thanks so much for joining the show. I greatly appreciate it. Matt Miller says, hi, all nice Ravelli score at Churchill today. Keeps paying off. Caught the double and super live big pick fours. Fingers crossed, Matt. Good luck as well. And obviously everyone's now saying, Charlie, oh my God, it's Charlie. Bring on the South Beach legend. Charlie, oh my God. Matt, that's how is law school. You kind of touched on it already, but obviously we'd be remiss if we didn't check in on you and how law school is going so far for you.
Yeah, no, very, very busy, time consuming, lots and lots of reading. I would certainly say it's not particularly the most fun time. It's definitely like when they say it's like you're having a job, it really is. It's not at all like undergrad, but slowly but surely getting more used to it, but very much in the thick of things right now. Have granted it's a practice midterm next week. Have my first like official paper due next week. And then the week after that, 2 weeks after that, I have my first actual midterm. So definitely starting to get a little more serious now. But no, making the best of it and trying to make time to do some fun things in between like this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You deserve a little bit of a break. And of course, again, we're covering Gulfstream, so why not make this one of them? Guys, the race number 7, as I mentioned at the start of the show, is going to be where we start. And it wouldn't be a Gulfstream car without everybody's favorite time of the day, and that is, of course, the claiming 10,000 on the Tapeta, guys. As I said, 10,000 mile and a 16th on the Tapeta, but Charles, a full field of 12 guys with a very lukewarm favorite being the number 2, always Adriana, Edgard Zayas for George Baxter, I believe, 3-1 on the morning line. I Love Venezuela to the inside. The second choice, Cipriano Gil and Ron Coy at 7-2. Third choice, Mi Amore for Miguel Vasquez and Daniel Hertak at 4-1. Bringing up our picks for the first race of this sequence, you can see 2 of us are going with number 10, Mi Amore, the New York bred. Charlie, always good to be in Charlie's camp when we're talking Gulfstream, but Noah is going with the number 1, I Love Venezuela, the Florida bred. Noah, obviously, I'll give you first dibs here as you are the one that is the odd man out. Obviously makes a ton of sense. And on what I like to call Gulfstream Speedway on the Tapeta, it's never obviously a bad idea to have someone on the lead.
Yeah, I think she should be at least close. I'm not 100% sure that she necessarily needs the lead. Yeah. I thought her win 2 back in the non-winners of 2 level was pretty decent, and then she just kind of stepped up her game once again, got into those beaten claiming ranks, and did it this time on the lead. It doesn't seem like there's a ton of speed in this race, and as Charlie will kind of mention as we talk about some of the later races, that kind of seems like the theme of the day. Like there's not a ton of speed. I know the win and you're in for the Villiers Sprint will have a little bit of speed, I think, probably. But that might be about it. So we could see a good amount of these races won from the front end, and it just kind of seems like I Love Venezuela is going to get a pretty good trip from the inside regardless. I was kind of with you guys. I feel like for me, in terms of betting this race, it'll be a game time decision just because I like the 10 too. I wasn't sure what to do with that common race, but I feel like if you want anyone, you probably want the 10. But if they let the 10 go off at 5-1, and then this horse is maybe sitting at 3-1, climbing back up in ranks, maybe the 10 would be the bet for me on Saturday.
Yeah, obviously, Charlie and I both agree. We both have 110 or 10-1 across all of us in a 12-horse field. So I guess that should give you some type of where our opinion's at. Charlie, the 10 is going to be one coming from off the pace. Obviously, the 1 should set a pretty good trip on the inside there. I also agree with Noah that I don't think she needs the lead necessarily by any means. And I think Timeform also agrees with us being the 2 and the 5 in front. But last time I thought Mi Amore ran really, really well. Now, first off, the claim for Dan Hertak looks to be pretty good with Miguel Vasquez on the irons.
Yeah, and that was first off a little bit of a layoff. You look at the fractions, and I get it's lower level, but nonetheless, I watched the replay. You could tell visually, even without the times, they were absolutely walking on the lead. As you mentioned, it is off the claim. Got a pretty difficult trip, got stuck in between, and was really just looking for some room as they were turning for home. And again, didn't have any sort of pace to work with. Now, I know we talked about that on the front end. There isn't going to be a ton of pace, but I certainly would expect they'll go at least that fast, if not faster. And I just trust that Mi Amore, second off off the layoff with a cleaner trip is going to get a better outcome this time around. And I also just like the consistent experience on the track at the distance. And I mean, you look 13 tries on the Tapeta, and for this level, I mean, has been in the money 8 times out of 13, 4 wins out of 13. So one that's actually consistent. And, obviously 4 for 20 initially doesn't look good, but when you look at the, 4, 2, and 4 for in the money, and almost every single in the money effort has been on this surface. This is, her bread and butter. I like that. I know she's raced 20 times, but she also is 4, which I like that she is at least, relatively speaking, to some of these others on the younger end. And also I couldn't help but notice, even though the trainer numbers don't look amazing, first off the claim at 24% was hard to ignore.
Yep, and that's what else I was going to bring up too. As you can see, trainer changes first after claim by Dan Hurtak. See, last 5 years, 11 for only 9% total wins off the claim is double that on the win percentage. 11 for 65, 17% on the win end, and that bottom number is of the last year. So obviously very good switching to the Hurtak barn. The other thing, Charlie, a lot of these races, we like to look for fresh faces, right? But a lot of these Tapeta claiming horses, they run, being Gulfstream is open all year round. They're just constantly banging heads against each other. Mia More was actually second choice to Bet Stormy, who's also in this race. And you can see, I mean, look how much running today there are on this replay. And I thought Mia More, again, off of a little bit of a freshening, I thought she ran super good. Mia More here on the inside, caught in between horses, a little bit of a weirder trip, and she's going to get through here. Diamonds for Lily lasted the whole way around. Look at those fractions, guys, too. 25-2, 50-2. You'd imagine that. I mean, and that's literally the worst bob in the history of the world. I mean, first time I watched that was unbelievable that she lost that race. But basically a winning run off of a 2-month freshening, now coming back into this race that in theory looks to have a little bit more of a pace setup than that last one. If they go 50-2, granted this is 10,000 claiming, but I would be very surprised if they do that. So Mia More will definitely be running late. Miguel Vasquez has had a fantastic start to the Sunshine meet. Of course, the one leading into the championship meet. So that's a really good pick for me. And Charlie, I'm glad you had that one on top. Again, a lot of us are kind of all over the, not really all over the place. We actually have the same or you guys have the same 2 horses and same horse in third being the number 2. And I have the number 4. Bet Stormy, again, is one that ran against them last time. Diamonds for Lily as well. However, looks to be a little bit more pace on, as I said, including number 5. Kosi, I have the number 4. She fled the scene in there. One that's run very well on the turf, not so much the Tapeta. However, if you're just looking in the only 1 for 17, granted she's 9 now, but she does have 11 for 17 in the money on the Tapeta. And if you go back to just the distance at a mile and a 16th, you're looking at 11 for 14 in the money at the distance. So not necessarily one that likes to win. However, always gives her run and likes to be in the money. Noah, Charlie, Noah, I'll let you talk first. Charlie, feel free to add anything, and then we'll move on. Always Adriana, you guys have both in third, and again, one to be part of that early pace projection.
Yeah, and there's a chance that she could be the speed of the speed. So I think she'd be a little dangerous if they, kind of disrespect her on the front end. Obviously, the main question is she's going to have to translate that form from turf to Tapeta as your 4 does as well, Kyle. But you're getting a little bit of a better price third with your 4. I had a question for Charlie, because this is something that I didn't quite know what to do with. So you see her last 3 races, she actually had a bug boy on all 3 times. She carried 115, 118, 118. Charlie, are you worried that, with one way to go, now she's got to carry 124? Or do you look at it the other way and go, those 2 jockeys aren't nearly as good as Edgar Zayas, especially at this time of year?
Yeah, I would definitely say the latter. For me, I'm a lot more focused about who's at the controls, especially I feel like in these kinds of races where when you have a lot of these lower level horses that kind of beat up on each other, like Kyle was saying earlier, I feel like the margins are a lot slimmer between, the best and the worst. And that's where it can really come down to, where, as Kyle highlighted, why we have the 10 on top is, just missed in a terrible bob and got a tough trip. Maybe wins with a better trip. And I think that's where Edgar Zayas can be a difference maker, is gets a big jockey upgrade. For me, the one concern I wanted to put this horse on top was just the lack of experience on the Tapeta. I get that everybody, says turf Tapeta are relatively similar, and I get it. But at the same time, at the end of the day, it's not the same service, and we've seen not every horse takes to it the same way. I do think she's the class of the field, obviously dropping down from 17.5 to 10 and has some very nice efforts. If her form transfers over, she's probably the horse to beat. I'm just curious. I was going to ask you this, Noah, where you had the one on top. The other hesitancy I had about putting either of them on top is you have the two clear speed horses that are actually, going to hold the speed and not be cheap speed directly next to each other on the inside.
I'd hope that Gil on the one would let the two go. I like the fact that she's drawn inside, and I think in these, especially these 10 claimer races where it seems like a lot of these other horses beat up on each other, and we kind of saw that with the common race. What are there, Kyle? Six or seven horses, yeah. 6 or 7 horses coming out of that race that the 10 just missed the bob on. So just fresh face angle. She's going to save every inch of ground at least, and I think that kind of might be the difference where you get a bunch of horses that kind of beat up on each other every now and then.
I think the one is that exact fit where you're looking for a fresh face, and if she's going to sit, type pocket trip, that works very well on that Gulfstream Tapeta. I think I Love Venezuela. Granted, you're not necessarily getting paid to find that trip. However, looks to sit a very nice one indeed. I'm going 10-1-4. Noah's going 1-10-2. Charlie's going 10-1-2. In everyone's favorite time of the day. However, we move on to the first stakes race we're going to talk about tonight. Race number 8 is the Bob Umphrey Stakes. It is 5 furlongs on the turf, guys. I guess it's arguably my favorite time of the day now, but another good field. It's a field of 9 with another little bit of a lukewarm morning line favorite in the number 4, XY Speed, although I'm not sure she will be 5-2. Misael Jaramillo takes up 5-2 again on the morning line. Second choice to the outside, the number 8, Abrir Caminos for Marcos Meneses at 9-2. And your third choice is El Apagón for Lionel Reyes and Victor Barbosa, 5-1 on the 2. As I bring up the picks on the screen right now, very base Noah, my friend, both going 4-2 in this race. Nothing very creative. Charlie, you are going with the number 2, El Apagón. So I'll let you talk about that one first. It's your turn to tell why Noah and I are wrong in the Bob Umphrey, why you like the number 2 El Apagón.
Yeah, I mean, look, I have a lot of respect for XY Speed. Obviously, a Gulfstream legend who at 9 years old is still, I guess last time didn't get it done in Saratoga, but at Gulfstream 2 back had gotten it done against some of these other horses. But for me, I'm just going to try to beat the 9-year-old and take a price, relative price. And for me, I just love the upside here. Kind of the complete opposite of the favorite. You have a 4-year-old, only 7 career lifetime starts, 3 victories. You also look, this is one that had been running on dirt and then was only recently switched to turf/Tapeta. And I understand, obviously, in the 2 turf efforts, hasn't won yet, but did win in that Tapeta effort. And if you look at the fractions in that Tapeta effort, was absolutely flying. I get that it's Gulfstream Speedway, but still, 20-4 and then 44 flat. Was flying on the front end against Cruising Man to the inside, and they're going to do it again, and was able, despite them battling, to pull away pretty comfortably from Cruising Man in that effort. And then last time, obviously lost to, Reef Runner, who's an absolute monster and a freak of a horse that is finally, if it wasn't for Paco, would have had 2 straight wins. So, losing to that monster of a horse is nothing to be ashamed of. And I just think this is one of those interesting, rare Gulfstream Speedway turf sprints where there's not really any speed. I think the clear speed is the 2 horses to the inside and Cruising Man and El Pagón. And when this happened the last time on Tapeta and they faced off each other, the 2 dusted the one and was able to get away pretty comfortably with stuff left in the tank. And so for me, I just feel like banking on a short price in these turf sprints, Kyle, that we don't really like, on a 9-year-old that's going to have to close down versus I can take a 4-year-old who's inexperienced and just seems to be getting better on turf and could end up being somewhat loose on the lead. I just think there's a lot to like. And if you're giving me anywhere near 5-1, I'm very excited to take that.
And that's honestly a really good point. The fact that even though this horse hasn't really run the best at the Gulfstream 5, I mean, you're looking at just who's this horse is losing to, and it kind of just changes, everything. Everything had this way, and especially what you're talking about with the one, how the 2 already dusted the one beforehand. I think that's definitely one thing to keep in mind. El Apagón could be a really nice 5-1 price for you on the win. And Noah, you and I are both going with that aforementioned 9-year-old. However, I mean, she's been it's probably as good as ever in her 9-year-old year, running back-to-back 92s earlier in the spring here at Gulfstream. Even Lerman had the audacity to take her to Saratoga, where an IRAD was on her, was backed decently well in that race. Obviously didn't end up running how they would have liked, but now coming back to her home at Gulfstream Park, where she's 16 for 20 in the money you'd imagine she'd get a really good trip just behind the speed. And if she's good enough, maybe just better than the horses to the inside, I could easily see her winning again at 9.
Yeah, I think he might be. I think he might have to take a drink for that one, Kyle, because that's a gelding right there. To Charlie's point, I really, really wish that I could kind of bet the race after about 4 or 5 strides, because I have a feeling if the 2 outbreaks the 1 and gets over and clears, then they all might be running for second. But I'm hoping that the 1 softens up the 2 a little bit, because I think it could set up really, really nicely for XY Speed, who just kind of has that traditional style of stock and pounce. And he's done it super well here at Gulfstream. I mean, he's only been out of the try here on the Gulfstream turf 4 times at a 20 starts. So just your typical hard knocking veteran. Tried him at Saratoga last time. A little bit of deep waters, gets back here to Gulfstream. And Jaramillo, who him and Zayas just absolutely kill it when those bigger guys are out of town during the championship meet. You get him on top, which obviously doesn't help. But hopefully, Kyle, we get as much as we can of that 5-2 morning line. I
agree. And I think, again, there's a lot of other ways, especially El Epagon, where I think is going to take a little bit more money than 5-1. I think you'll get at least 5-2. 2-1 might be the absolute lowest you'll get on XY Speed. Will I be willing to play that in a turf sprint? Everyone that watches this show would know the answer to that question for me. But again, I understand and like XY Speed the most out of anyone. Again, we're all 2-4 a lot of the time. Charlie, do have the number 5 Eamon, a horse that's been around a lot, out in the turf sprint, was 3rd in the Shakertown earlier this spring. I mean, anyone running in the Shakertown being in this race would be 1 to 1 million. Maybe just not the same horse nowadays, as he's getting up there now 7. However, again, coming back to the track that he's had the most success at could be the recipe.
Yeah, to be honest, if it wasn't for the fact that, again, this is a rare Gulfstream turf sprint where there isn't a ton of speed on paper, I would have honestly thought about taking a chance to put him on top. I mean, you look at the efforts, and yeah, didn't necessarily really like the good turf on the turf sprint at Churchill and had that bad number then at Saratoga. But these were going 5.5 when the horse is more used to going 5 at Gulfstream. These weren't at Gulfstream, and these were in stakes races against much better than these. Gets back here 11 out of 15 times in the money, gets Zayas up. And this horse is one of my worst beats ever, because I had hammered Reef Runner when they raced against each other in a stakes race in March. And this horse flew like a train and got up by a nose. That was a really tough day for me. But the reality is I hear you in that the horse is 7, but I, at least to me, less think that 56 or that 71 show that his form is dipped, and more so show that when this horse has tried to run at 5.5 and tried to run in these higher level stakes races away from Gulfstream, he's just not to that level. But when he's at this type of field, kind of similar to what we saw with XY Speed going to Saratoga, that this is just their bread and butter. So to me, I think absolutely one of the savvy veteran horses like Noah was talking about in the 4 or 5 could get this done. But again, I just think with the setup, I'd rather take a chance on the young up and coming horse that I can get a good price on, that it sets up nicely for. But either of these vets certainly makes sense here as well.
I agree. And I have Win From Within, another one of the veteran horses in here. It's just, again, this, you guys know how I feel about these types of races, but it's really just kind of tough. If it's not the 2 or the 4, it really could be anyone in here. Win From Within had some really nice races last spring. This will be second off the layoff, off the trainer switch to D'Angelo, who's very good with this type of move. Rajiv Miraz up aboard, who's been 4 for 7 in the money. However, none of those have been wins so far at the Sunshine Meet. So looking for Win Within to at least sneak his way into the trifecta. Noah, you're going with the 3 and 3rd Biz Buzz. Again, D'Angelo, Miguel Vasquez, another one that's running around a lot of these horses a lot of the time in his career, and he's run very well against him before, so why not this time?
Yeah, and I have way too much respect for Jose D'Angelo. If you didn't hear my little, I guess it wasn't a rant, I was just kind of praising, or as we like to say, glazing Jose D'Angelo with his who was that? Ben Tornado?
Ben Tornado, yeah.
And ran very, very well, and could be a force to be reckoned with in the sprint come Halloween and November 1st. But this is one that it just seems like he definitely prefers the grass than the Tapeta. I know his last 2 weren't very good, but Charlie would know this more than I would. It feels like whenever I've kind of seen Gulfstream and watched them, they've kind of avoided running on the turf for at least a decent amount of time, just because they want to save it. Of course, you want to make sure that it's it's good and good enough in time for when the real talent comes down to South.
When it matters, yeah.
But yeah, he's just another one that prefers grass. He's run some decent races on it. He kind of butted heads with some of the other favorites in here, and you're going to get 4 or 5 times the price. So I think he's maybe one that you could throw underneath and maybe a board shot.
Again, I agree with you completely. It's just a fact of, again, if it's not 2-4 for me, there's a lot. I mean, there's so many different horses you could go with in here in the Bob Humphrey. I'm going 4-2-6. Noah's going 4-2-3. Charlie's going 2-5-4. Guys, let's move on to race number 9. Right back to the Tapeta that everybody loves, ladies and gentlemen. It's another flat 5 sprint. It is another field of 9, but this one's an allowance optional 25,000 on the Tapeta field of 9. The morning line favorite is a little bit of a heavy one, and one that I'm very surprised is made the morning line favorite. The number 2, Maitre D. Well, I'm not surprised because I have it on top. A little spoiler. Maitre D, Edgar Zayas, Jose D'Angelo, 9-5 on the morning line. Second choice, the number 5, 3-0, Miguel Vasquez, Carlos David, 5-2. Third choice being the number 4, Latch the Hatch, Edwin Gonzalez, Joseph Orseno, 6-1 on the morning line. Bringing up our picks right now. 3 different horses in the realm for us. I'm going with the number 2, Maitre D. Charlie's going with the number 5, 3-0. Noah going with a little bit of a price shopping in this one, going with the number 3, the Chilean bred Beach Colt for Reylu and Amador Sanchez. So, Noah, going to let you talk first just because you have the longest shot on the board, and I always like to talk about it. If you have an opinion on a horse like this, especially in a flat 5 Tapeta, might as well go for it, sir. 10-1 on the morning line for Beach Colt.
Yeah, and I actually like Beach Colt quite a bit. He's coming out of the same race as Maitre D, who, like you said, is the 9-5 morning line favorite and ran a very valiant second. Beach Colt, he just didn't really break all that well. It was his first time in the States. Just a little lackadaisical out of the gate and maybe needed the race. But you actually go to the incremental pace if you click on the race and then click on that tab,
Yep.
Kyle. You can see that he actually closed just under 11-3, which is pretty damn fast for the race. I mean, it was the fastest of the group, basically about a 1/5 of a second faster than anybody else in that race. So it just seemed like he was kind of putting the pieces together late in that race. Obviously, second time in the States, I know is an angle that our boy Charlie loves. So I think, maybe he gave him a long look, and it just seems like this is the time, right? You got the 2 who's going to be a pretty low price. I know he's second off the bench. There's some other horses that I think are going to take money. I think he could get dismissed a little bit. So I'm going to take a shot. Reylu's always a guy that I've loved and trusted on the West Coast. He's had some success over there on some horses that I've liked. And then the last thing that kind of caught my eye on the bottom of the screen to the bottom left, last time worked on, what was that, Sunday? He went 34-2 out of the gate. So I wonder if maybe Reylu's going to put a little more speed into him just because there's not a lot of speed in this race. But I think he's still got some close into him. And 10-1, I'm hoping I get somewhere around that. And just seems like a race where you go price shopping, and this is the one I landed on.
Yeah, I mean, I actually didn't see that 34-2 work out of the gate. I saw it, obviously, didn't see it was a gate breeze as well. So that brings up a really good point, Noah, that they might be trying to put a little more early speed into him. And I don't know which one is a bigger angle for Charlie. It's either the second here in the U.S. or the off a jockey with the last name of Valdivia. I'm not sure which one is more used by the man on the bottom there. But look, if they put him into the race, Beach Colt can absolutely surprise at a nice price. Charlie, you have the number 5-3-0. This is the horse I thought was going to be the morning line favorite, which is why I ended up going with the 2. 86, 88 buyer in 2 of the last 3 starts. Definitely well and above this field. Now coming back or staying at Gulfstream where he's 11 for 13 in the exacta. 3-0 makes a whole ton of sense here.
Yeah, I was very surprised as well. I think quite honestly, he's sort of now relative for the, what kind of race this is, but sort of lays over this field, to be honest. Now, I do think your 2 is interesting in terms of just sort of the opposite angle of instead of being the savvy vet, like we talked about in some of these other races, like the XY speed race, that one's more like my 2 I had on top of Maitre D, where, the one is a lot lighter race. But yeah, 3-0 might be the savvy vet, but it doesn't seem like, he is also only 5 compared to, we were talking about in the last race of 7 and 9-year-olds, but he seems to be in the best form of his career right now. And I watched back that effort last time out, and it was every bit of that 88. It was so impressive. Ran against Mr. Narcissistic, who's a really nice horse. I want to say for Safi, but I don't remember off the top of my head. I don't know as well for the lower horses.
Bingo.
Yeah, it is for Safi, who, is I was going to say, I just just remember always wins these kind of races and is ultra consistent. And, had every chance to go by, and 3-0 pulled away at the end again after, by the way, setting some insane well, I know it says cold. I don't know how that's possible. 21-3, I get isn't crazy, but 43-3 when I was watching, I was like, holy cow. Again, maybe it's because they're running on pure concrete at this point, but to me, I haven't been able to watch much there. But for me, when I saw that and I watched it, to me, it looked like they were going plenty fast.
The wet Tapeta, Charlie, the wet Gulfstream Speedway, definitely,
That's fair.
They can kick up some butt. No, I absolutely agree with you because I thought that was also very impressive. I mean, he's getting passed here by the 8-5 favorite, but he ends up pulling away decently well.
Yeah, you can see right there. I was saying, he reflips on the switch, and after sort of just like fighting back, and it looks like they're just going to bat on the stretch. One time that he got the go ahead to get going again, he got re-energized and then pulled away. And yeah, he galloped out plenty well too. So for me, I think he's the speed of this race. I think he's the class of this race. I just think he gets to the front, and I think the 2 is going to need to take a fairly big step forward. And I had a slight concern I wouldn't get odds I'd love on the 2. I didn't know it'd be that bad. And also, we talk about jockeys that do really well at this time of year. How about trainers? David Carlos at this time of year. I understand, 1 for 12 at Gulfstream, but you see 20% overall, and I just know generally, maybe he's off to a slower start right now, but at this time of year, it's him and Barbosa are 2 of the guys I always make sure to pay attention, along with Jaramillo and Zayas for the jockeys that are excelling at this time of year. So I really like 3-0 here.
There's really 5 jockeys or 5 trainers at Gulfstream Park that I always have to take a look at. Obviously, Safi's one of them. Then you got Jose D'Angelo, Carlos David, Barbosa, and then Antonio Sano. I feel like those are your kind of 5 Gulfstream trainers that you always need to at least take a look at when they enter horses in there. And God, Maitre D, I know he ran the Battaglia and in the Swale, so obviously Doug O'Neill had high expectations for this horse coming out. Broke the maiden on Tapeta, has been working down at Palmettos and working very nicely for D'Angelo. This will be second off a decently long layoff. It was a 6-month layoff coming into that last race, and I thought ran very, very well considering he was off of that layoff. Now second off the layoff for D'Angelo, gets Edgar Zayas back aboard. So this horse could definitely take a ton of money just based on the running lines on here. However, being with the buyers that 3-0 had run before, I thought for sure that it was going to be the flip-flop. It was going to be 3-0, 2-1, Maitre D somewhere in that 5-2, 3-1 angle, and that's definitely where I would play the 2 on a win bet. So very interesting to see how the odds shape up in this race, but I really do like Maitre D to have a little bit of a come-out party on Saturday if he gets the correct trip and has at least a little bit of speed to run into in front of him. I have the number 4, Latch the Hatch, in third. You guys have the number. So Noah, you have the 2 and the 5 that we already talked about. Charlie, you have the 6. Latch the Hatch is one that's going to try the Tapeta for the first time, but Orseno is generally decent with this move, especially when he comes down to Gulfstream Park. Has run very well on the dirt down here in South Florida. So if you can continue to put it together, this is going to be another one close to the pace. Although one, I'm not sure that necessarily needs it either. So if you can set right off a horse, like the like 3-0 or something like that, should have a pretty decent way to get into the exacta. Noah closed it out. Take care of business. Charlie, close it out. Take care of business. Joel Santiago and Jaramillo hops aboard this one for the 3rd time here in a row.
Yeah, look, obviously the trainer number of 1 for 23 isn't inspiring, and I don't think this one's realistically a win candidate at 2 for 21. But if you look, ultra consistent. I mean, in the money, 11 out of 16 times on the surface, tends to, especially, at 5.5 close up and then just miss and finish 2nd, 3rd, or 4th. For me, this one is strictly, I for a race where I really do think it likely is the 2 or the 5. This is one absolutely where, these obviously aren't the best horses in the world. If you think that there's a chance that one of the 2 or 5 doesn't finish top 2, I would say this one. And honestly, the horse I was close to putting in my top 3 for some of the angles he mentioned was Noah's 3. I think the 6 and 3 are great horses to look to use underneath in your tries and exactas under the 5 or the 2 in this race. Gets Jaramillo aboard, which is another plus. Could hurt the price a little bit. But yeah, you just look at the run line and really hasn't run a bad race on the Tapeta. The numbers are always consistent, always finishing in that 2nd to 4th range. So I think this one makes a ton of sense as an underneath play strictly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with you. Again, it's one of those races that seems pretty top heavy, but underneath you can get a lot of decent prices, including Noah's 3. If you don't like that horse to win, I feel like that's definitely one you need to at least look at for your exotic exactas and trifectas. I'm going 2-5-4. Noah's going 3-2-5. Charlie's going 5-2-6. Guys, back to the stakes action here. This is arguably the race of the day in the grade 3. Princess Rooney, 7 furlongs for older fillies and mares for 200,000, draws a field of 8, 4 of them, of course, being Saffie Joseph. If you pay attention to Gulfstream in the off season at all, you know that would be nothing shy of normalcy for there. And the thing is, though, I will talk about this here in a little bit. I have and a lot of the guys also have this inclination. The number 6 Mystic Lake is also entered in at Parks on Saturday on the Pennsylvania Derby card. She's been working out at Saratoga. I don't think she'll be coming to this race. She will, and she'll have Hall and Ice, Ultimate Authority, and Claret Beret in this race instead. So, and that's all reflected in our picks. You can see 2 of us are going with number 5. Charlie, very based, my friend. I like that a lot. Noah, you are going with Claret Beret, a horse that that Howard was high on a lot at Saratoga. Obviously didn't run the best that day. However, definitely an interesting one. You're getting most likely favoritism now that Mystic Lake will be out. Definitely be a fight between her and Hall and Ice for favoritism. But what'd you like most about the number 8, Claret Beret?
Yeah, I kind of hope that Hall and Ice takes quite a bit of money, because I think Claret Beret should be the favorite. And I'd be surprised if she wasn't, but if she isn't, then I'm probably going to be betting this race a little more than I'd like to admit. But I'm not quite sure what happened last time in the Ballerina. Obviously, something happened. She was up really, really close, and Hope Road and Scylla, I mean, they were moving pretty good, which I think with the limited amount of pace in here, I think with the outside post, Husbands will probably just kind of have her right on top of that lead, not too far off of Mystic Lake, which is why I like her even more. And she kind of showed that in those 2 victories, or sorry, the 2 races prior to that, where she had a 95 buyer here at Gulfstream, kind of blew the doors off that field. I mean, when's the last time you saw somebody beat a field by 20 lengths? And then she kind of proved that wasn't a fluke when she came back at 10-1, almost beat Kyle's girl Vava in Chicago, who did he have that day? I can't remember if he had her that day. But I thought she ran really, really well in that race. And there were a lot of reasons to believe that she was going to run well in the Ballerina, like Howard thought. And just didn't for some reason, but comes back to her home track. I feel like Saffie's pretty much got this race on lock, unless the 5 that you guys like steps up big, in which she very well could.
I'm going to off myself in the game of Minecraft, by the way. No, I did not have her that day, and it's going to be held over my head for the rest of my life, I'm sure. But no, Claret Beret obviously has the most upside probably. It's almost a 0 buyer angle. Like, she ran so bad that it's too bad to be true. Now coming back into a race where she fits a lot more than last time, maybe just a little bit too much too soon, but arguably it was the next step up after how well she ran in the Chicago at Churchill. So coming back now to Gulfstream Park, where she won by almost 20 lengths her last time at this track. So definitely one to consider. Charlie, we all have the horse somewhere. We're 5'8", 8'5" all around. Charlie, I'm very happy you have this horse on top. I thought she ran super last time. And Gustavo Delgado, actually, you could arguably add him to the list as well, even though he's a little bit of a smaller barn. He runs super well at Gulfstream Park, almost like a strictly only Gulfstream Park trainer, barring obviously when he has a horse-like reputation to ship around. Won super nicely at Ellis Park and then comes back and runs even better over at a listed stake at Colonial. Now comes back to Gulfstream Park, where she's 2 for 2 in the money. I really like reputation on Saturday.
Yeah, I was hoping, this is going to be a little bit of a kept secret going with this horse. And also the fact that it's owned by My Racehorse is not ideal, because you're not going to get a good price. You'll probably get 4-1.
Well, and I picked it now on top, so this horse will go off at 8-5.
Yeah. So, but honestly, I mean, part of it, I was really torn between going with the 5 or 8, but I do agree with a lot of what Noah was saying. I just have a feeling this 8 horse is going to go off somewhere around 8-5, 9-5. And I want the value on reputation that I'm probably not going to get either. So that's going to be really fun. But yeah, I mean, this one, a little kind of similar to the 8 in a few ways, broke the maiden at Gulfstream in a romping back in early 2025. You mentioned Gustavo Delgado, kind of just a smaller barn runners, some of these other guys. But he's one of those that doesn't necessarily have, the biggest amount of horses, but he always has a few of those really impressive ones, and Reputation's one of them. And when this one got the job done against Fourgois at Ellis Park, I was like, okay, this one's pretty serious, and that's why he's shipping around. But I thought, like you said, the effort last time was incredible. I mean, was sitting off, had a little bit of traffic, and then got space. Obviously took some decent money, wasn't favorite, but ran against some nice horses. And Impulse Buy, I know hasn't been in the same form that the horse had shown prior. Obviously, the last few efforts have been a little disappointing. That being said, I mean, Reputation, when you watch the replay, it looks like kind of similar to what we talked about, Kyle, with the sprint horse we were talking about, where they were neck and neck with Mr. Narcissistic and then pulled away. But this was to a whole nother level.
Yeah.
I mean, when you watch that turn stretch from, it looks like Reputation and Impulse Buy are about to go at it. And then Reputation's like, okay, no, I kind of want to try now, and just treated Impulse Buy like that horse should be in our first race we covered in the Tapeta claiming race. I mean, it was incredible the way that she took off. And again, kind of a common theme you're seeing here, like the two in the Tapeta race that I chose, just trying to go for some, or the turf sprint, trying to go for some of these younger horses that are less proven and just taking a swing. Obviously doesn't have, the big stakes races of the 8 and doesn't have those buyers in the 90, but you can see is steadily improving and took a big jump last time. And I think if she builds off that last effort visually, I think she had a lot more left. I don't see why she couldn't pop a number in the 90s and get it done here.
Yeah, and that's obviously the biggest thing, right, is that she has to take that step up to be able to run with a horse like Claret Beret. However, I think she has the ability to do it, being only 3. This will be her 5th time out as a 3-year-old, and she's basically been improving every single time, minus one dud effort at Churchill. Maybe where she, those allowance races at Churchill are always super, super tough. So, in fact, coming off a buyer top, now coming back home to Gulfstream, they actually kept her out stable at Saratoga, which I thought was an interesting move from Delgado. But she's been training now 3 straight training works. Last one was a complete maintenance work, which I actually like coming back into this race. Delgado looks to have her really nice and primed and should sit right behind the speed. As I bring up the time form, guys, see the 2 Hall and Ice. Obviously, Mystic Lake's not going to be in here. So the one thing is going to be, and Claret Beret is not going to go with Hall and Ice. So the pace scenario is really the question here of what's going to happen. And Hall and Ice looks to have the lead decently to herself. Claret Beret should not be far behind. They're all Saffies. They're not going to fight each other. A lot of us have the 2 in third. Charlie, for me, it was a complete pace play. Noah, you have the 3 Ultimate Authority, the other Saffy, because there's not 4 of them anymore. There's only 3 for a jockey that I know too well for some reason.
Me too.
Skylar Spanabel. I can't believe I saw her name in the program. I burst out laughing and almost texted you, Charlie, but I figured obviously you were busy.
Having a good 25, to be fair. I'm sorry.
Well, it's the way it goes with Skylar. But anyway, Noah, that's one that's ran and actually was stabled on the West Coast for Yakteen. Now, first time in the Saffy barn running at Gulfstream. You could imagine she'd run back to those numbers. She ran very nicely at San Antonio.
Yeah, I was kind of always a big fan of her when she was on the West Coast, and I actually liked her a little bit in the Beholder when she was the longest shot in the board. Now she kind of made me look like an idiot, but I still liked her. And then in the Santa Maria, she was way over her head. Ran a third to Richie and Splendora, who are very, very nice fillies and mares. Been switched over. She's been off for a little bit, which I like. Kind of waited a while to kind of bring her back onto the work tab. You see, she had been off from April to August 15th. Now, I don't know if that was, some kind of soundness issue that she had, or if Saffy just kind of wanted to give her some time off. But she came back, and she's kind of working progressively more and more kind of leading up to this race, which Saffy didn't have to necessarily throw her in this race. He could have started her off with an allowance race down in South Florida, but decided to go into this race where he's kind of already got things locked up. I just thought that was kind of an interesting move. Now, I'm not as familiar with Skylar Spanabel as you guys are, but I am familiar with goose eggs, and goose eggs are not super good when it comes to horse racing. So she'd probably be more of an underneath type, but I think my main opinion in this race is that I'm not a very big fan of Hall and Ice, but I can let you guys talk about why you do like her.
Yeah, no, we can end with that. I agree with you, even though I have her in third, just because the fact that she could just be loose. Because again, a lot of these Saffies are not going to go fight each other, Charlie. I should definitely like her probably the least out of all the Saffies, just because when she hasn't had it completely her way, she's run some very big dud efforts. However, again, you have to imagine she's going to be by herself here. And if she wins by 6 again, you could see it happening, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Oh, no, I agree. It's just for me, what I think is going to happen and what I hope happens is that on the 5, Vasquez is aggressive enough to stay, obviously not going to be right there, but stay close enough to force the 8's hand to be more aggressive. Because I think that's what they're going to know, and then that's what they're going to agree with. And I agree with you, Kyle, is Safi's not going to intentionally have his horses destroy each other. He can easily have a comfortable 1-2 here, 2-8 or 8-2 if the 8 doesn't press. The only way that doesn't happen, in my opinion, just off of class and ability, is if the 5 decides to sit close enough to where, again, the 8's going to have to decide, well, we're not just going to sacrifice the 8, so Clara Beret has to also go. And as long as the 5 can make the 8 be honest enough, I think it's going to force the 2 to be honest. And then the other issue on top of that, I just think Haul and Ice is respectfully a terrible horse at 7 furlongs. I mean, you look at the numbers, she can't get it done there. And I remember I was at the OTB watching that race, and I actually had Vincy Girl that day, who is one of my worst bad beats of all time. No, you don't realize, but if I showed you the replay, you'd remember. There was an all-time bad beat I had with Vincy Girl for horizontals for me, where she had the entire length of the stretch to go by and lost by a nose. And I thought she was a pig, but then she won for me later, so I gave her redemption. It was actually, I think it was, I don't know, sometime in 2024 in like the summerish, peak Gulfstream time. Anyway, but Haul and Ice in this race, obviously they went fast, I get it, but was towards the lead the whole time. It looked like she was going to be fine turning for home, and then absolutely just had nothing. And Vincy Girl went by her like she was standing still. So I just think unless they literally let her crawl and no one's within 10 lengths of her, I think she can't get the distance.
I fully agree with you. Obviously, the best races she's run in her lifetime, like in terms of class, have been at the 7, but you'd have to imagine, though she went quick, you'd have to imagine she should have won that race if the 7 furlongs was for her. And the fact that she didn't, I'm completely in your camp. Yeah, no, when was this from? June 21st, 2019 is when Skylar Spanable won her first race ever.
Wait, you said June 21st?
Yep, June 21st.
What a great birthday present for me. I got a Skylar Spanable win.
Yes. And Matt, yes, that's the same jockey from Arlington back in the day, where she was like 0 for 100 and whatever, and she ended up winning her first race ever. And I don't think it was trained by her mom being Kelly Spanable, who trained, and she always rode. They were always goose egged every single year at Arlington, and she actually won one. I think she rode one for a person like Safi, ended up getting the win. So it's always funny when I see her pop up in the program, because the memories all flow back to me. And of course, whenever I get Arlington memories, is always a good time. I have 5.82 in the Princess Rooney. Noah's got 8.53. Charlie's going 5.82 as well. Very based. Last race, guys, is the Ginger Punch Handicap, going a mile on the turf. And this one is probably one of my biggest opinions on the entire day. And in a very nice race of a lot of these Florida bred horses, or Florida running horses, I guess I should say, headed by the morning line favorite being the number 10, Starship Impulsive, Leonel Reyes, Steve Dwoskin, 9-5 on the morning line. Second choice, the number 4, Charlie's Wish, Miguel Vasquez, David Fox at 3-1. Third choice, the number 5, Lady Cha-Cha, Edgar Zayas, Safi Joseph, 7-2 on the morning line. Bringing our picks up on the screen right now. I'm going with the number 9, Leo Toro from Micah Husbands and Safi. You guys are both going with the number 10, Starship Impulsive. Noah, I'll let you talk first. Charlie, feel free to add anything. I'm going to bring up the replay as well for that one, because a lot of these horses ended up running in that handicap race. It was a field of 6.
Kyle, I think you should go first. You're going with 8. We're going with the chalk favorite. No, I want to hear why. No, you said it's a strong opinion. I want to hear it now.
The host never goes first. Everyone knows that. The host never goes first.
No. You know what? It's my special getting to come back on again.
Oh, yeah.
Big opinion of a big
Charlie's Wish.
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, see, at least Charlie has Charlie's Wish in there somewhere. I want to show this replay, Charlie, so I'm going to let the replay go. Then I'll end up talking about Leo Toro. But Noah, I'm going to let the replay play. Again, you're looking at these 4 horses on the screen right now. The number 2, Starship Impulsive, is your eventual winner, and the horse you guys both have on top.
Charlie, should I just protest and not talk until Kyle decides to talk?
I swear to God, dude. I swear to God.
I mean, she did this pretty. I mean, she got a pretty favorable trip in here. I mean, the 7 was on a pretty decent lead. The field was pretty strung out. Starship Impulsive kind of had started with that inside position, and then kind of moved in tandem with the was it the 6 Ashima?
Yeah.
And then those two were kind of duking it out in the stretch there. I thought she was pretty game to hold on. I know Charlie Swish made a little bit of a run late, and there wasn't really a ton of run from the back of the pack, which is why I like her a little bit in the race. And she got a pretty favorable bob there. I was a little, I guess not concerned, but I was a little surprised that she was so low on the morning line, considering she got a pretty good trip last time. It's not like the race came out of nowhere, but in terms of buyer figures and time form, I guess, that was a pretty big jump up. But she was off the layoff. I guess she could move forward again. Even if she runs back to that race, I think she's going to be pretty tough. But I think there are some questions and some things to overcome, especially from that wide 10 post.
Charlie, we're talking about it. I really liked Ashima that last time. I don't remember why I was playing Gulfstream Park that day. Probably in tandem with you would be my guess.
I'm surprised. Why wouldn't you?
I really liked Ashima. Oh, I can answer that for you. I don't think you want to hear the answer I have. But I thought Starship Impulsive got a really, really easy trip last time behind Let's Go Coco, who you'd imagine is going to do the same exact thing she did that race today. And if she doesn't get the distance again, I don't think Starship Impulsive is completely like a shoe-in here by any means.
No, and I think that's fair. I was actually going to ask if you can go back to the replay because I'm trying to remember because I'm pretty sure it was this one that at the end of the replay, Starship Impulsive had a really nice gallop out. But so for me, my angle with her is, I mean, outside of she's 3, I think she's getting better to where Noah was wondering where the figure came from. 5 of 8 on the win and 5 for 7 here at Gulfstream. And I just think, trainer's done a terrific job after figuring out what she really wants. They started out trying her at 5 furlong, just flat runnings on the turf in Tapeta. And I get she broke the maiden there, but clearly wasn't the long-term focus. And then you see as soon as they switched to stretching out to a mile plus, the figures have just continued to progress. And then off a little bit of a layoff, rips an 89 and now second off the layoff. I just think she's one of those that just does a really good job of creating her own trips. She's always relatively close. And look, if they set insane suicidal fractions like they did in that last race where the leader couldn't hold on, then she's happy to sit, a little bit further off, but always stay close enough. I just think she's at all times going to find a way to make sure she's close enough. I think Lionel Reyes really understands her well and knows when to push the button. And I think Ashima's a pretty nice horse who's been in some of these other handicap stakes races pretty consistently. So I think that's a nice horse to, duke it out with and get it done. And that was actually part of the gallop out, was part of the reason I couldn't put Charlie's Wish on top, aside from the fact that the horse is going to close and I think maybe wants a mile and a 16th. But I just think Starship Impulsive is going to get the right trip, and I think she still had more to show in the tank than just winning by a narrow head in that race. And I do think she's one of my more confident picks in this race, and that, or in this card, and why it's, I think, one if not the only favorites I've gone with.
Yeah, and I feel you guys are completely on it. I mean, I have her in second. She could absolutely win. Charlie's Wish is another one. I thought she gave a really nice run there for third, being a lot farther back than the other two in this race, and just ended up not getting there in time. However, I feel like she's definitely one you need to use at least underneath, being that she's 2 for 3 in the trifecta Gulfstream, however, never on the win end, and also never on the win end at this type of distance. Guys, Leo Toro is one that really is a wild card in here. This is a new trainee for Safi. And my thinking is that if she was, if she wasn't as good as I think she is, or maybe Safi thinks she is, I don't think she would have shipped to Colonial that day and ran there instead of just running in an allowance at Gulfstream Park. The fact that Safi shipped her to Colonial and ended up winning that well. Royal Princess actually came back to win, albeit on the dirt at Delaware Park for Brittany Russell. However, of course, next out winner is always nice to see. Ahead of that, I don't know who else she really faced that day. Micah Husbands ran her there. Obviously, Safi has been using Micah a lot during these summer meets. So the fact that he's going to be put on, of course, I believe it's the nephew of Patrick Husbands, if I'm remembering that correctly. But she just won really impressively last time. And as Charlie points out, there really has not been any type of speed in these races at all. You got Let's Go Coco, and Starship Impulsive also going to be right there. But if I'm getting Starship Impulsive at somewhere around 8-5, and the other unknown in this race in Leo Toro at almost 4 times the price sitting right next to him, given how Starship Impulsive last time ran with a perfect trip, I would much rather be willing to go with Leo Toro sitting right off the speed of Let's Go Coco. And with Charlie's Wish starting late, getting the jump on those two, For me, it's either 9-10. I feel like you can kind of toss them up. But again, you're getting 4 times the price, at least on the morning line, to the number 9, Leo Toro. And as if I have Safi Joseph in another Gulfstream Park handicap, I'm not exactly going to be upset about that, especially at a nice price. So that's really what all it comes down to is, one, if I'm getting 8-1 instead of 9-5, and also a very similar trip, and arguably one that's unknown. Obviously, she's 4 years old. She's ran some very nice races on the turf in the past, both at Kentucky Downs and at Keeneland. I mean, she was a length and 3/4 behind Special Juan and a length behind Federalism, 2 very nice horses in that fact. I mean, obviously Special Juan wouldn't satisfy these conditions, but given how she's run recently, you'd imagine she'd be a million, 1 to a million. So Leo Toro is just one I'm going to take a shot with at 8-1. So you guys all yell at me. So now you guys get to tell me why I'm wrong. Obviously, Noah, you would think that she has a little bit of a chance, being that you have her in 3rd.
No, I don't think you're wrong. I like the pick, and I feel like anytime Connections, they claim a horse for 35, and then 2 starts later they've got him at a stake. I feel like something's got to be working, and they're certainly going in the right direction. I guess the worry would be that with her recent victories and how she's been able to have success in those races, she might have to do something a little different than maybe she's used to doing. I know she's kind of found that niche the last 2 of being on the lead and kind of kicking away from those fields. But she might have to sit, because I know there's a very, very quick horse down on the
the 3.
The 3,
that's the one that loves setting outrageous paces.
Yeah, 3 is very quick, and then even the 10's got some pretty decent speed too. So she might kind of have to sit in the pocket. But then again, Kyle, she's 8-1. You're getting paid to find out, and good on you.
Good on you, mate. Appreciate you.
I will push back a little bit. Not trying to poo-poo on the pick by any means. My concern, personally, why I didn't have this horse in my top 3, is because a lot of what you guys have highlighted as a positive. I don't think you're getting 8-1. People are going to see this as a Safi horse. They're going to see the romping by 9 lengths. I think you're probably going to get – I would not be surprised if this 9 goes off as 2nd or 3rd choice. I mean, the 10 is going to be your favorite. I have a feeling the 4 will be the 2nd choice, just because, as you guys have touched on, and obviously I have the horse in 2nd as well, in a race where no one really closed, as Noah touched on, that one was flying, so people are going to see that. But I have a feeling this 9 will end up being the 3rd choice, and it'll be closer to 5-1 if I had to guess, 9-2, which is still a decent price. But for me, my concern is I'm guessing I'll probably get, somewhere around 3-1, 7-2 on the 4, who I think is the safer pick. But I think a lot of what you said made sense, Kyle. I think my concern is just this 3 is going to be on the lead. The 9's going to have to try to rate. I know the 10 can rate. I don't know the 9 can rate. I think for the price that you could get, finding out makes a lot of sense. And I look, horizontals, I would absolutely, in some sort of backups, to hedge against the 10, do something. I think it's not a creative pick at all. And I think a lot of your reasons make sense. My concern is I just would want closer to that 8-1 than what I think you'll actually get. But I do think the ability is there. And then jumping into my 3 horse, honestly, again, like we've talked about this whole card, not to beat a dead drum or whatever the saying. I get tired here.
We can't use the actual saying, but I'm glad you said dead drum. I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, no, but there is something with the drum. I know the other one. Yeah, I tried to replace. I tried to replace it. There isn't a lot of speed in these races, which is just so bizarre, because that's what we always have at Gulfstream at this time of year. Is these are just lower level races typically, where it's just wiring the field. But Let's Go Coco is really the only true speedball in this field. And if you look at the only detriment to her and why I couldn't put her higher is it seems like she only knows how to set outrageous fractions that are going to cost her the race. Like, she doesn't know how to set a cold pace and take advantage that it's going to work in her favor, which is why I couldn't put her higher. I just have a feeling that she's just going to continue to do what she always does, which is no matter what Edwin or anybody else tries to do, is just going to go insanely fast and then hope to hold off. And I don't think she can hold off the 10 or maybe even the 4 or 9 or some of these others. But if you're giving me anywhere near 10-1, I'm happy to find out underneath. I mean, if you're looking for a way to create value, 10-3 exact is not impossible.
No, absolutely not impossible. But you are right. The fact that she just loves to go out there, and it's basically just a one-way ticket of will she hold on or will she fade to 6th by the end of it. But I do agree with you. There's really no one to challenge her just because she is so fast out of the gate. I'm going 9-10-4 in the Ginger Punch. Noah's going 10-4-9. Charlie's going 10-4-3. Charlie, I'll have you lead us off just because this is a little bit of a return for the man, so we'll let him give his best bets first and probably get the win, would be my guess. Race number 8, a double, 2 into 2-5. You can almost play this as a pick 4, a late pick 4 as well. In race 10, you're going a double 5-8 with 10. Singling Starship Impulsive in the last one. And in race number 8, in the 5 furlong turf sprint, you're singling your number 2, El Apagón.
Yeah, I like I said, I really like El Apagón. I'm trying. I know it's turf sprints, and we're not the biggest fans of those, but I'm going to take a swing here again. I love the upside. You're going with the young horse for Barbosa, going against the 2 savvy vets in Iman and XY Speed. This one's going to be loose on the lead. Only has to hold off Cruising Man, who to me is just a horse that really likes to Pete a lot more than turf and isn't all that good. So I just think this 2 is going to get loose on the lead. Like Noah kind of touched on in his fear that, within the first few lengths we'll kind of know. And I'm hoping that what we'll see in those first few lengths is this 2's already gotten enough ground on the 1 to not have to worry, and then just wires this field. And then going into the next, again, Kyle, I know you really like the 2 in the next race. I think that's the D'Angelo horse, right, with Zayas.
Yep.
But I don't love the price, but I do think the horse makes a lot of sense. And then again, the 5, kind of the reverse angle of the turf sprint race, kind of taking the young up and coming horse in the 2, and then the savvy vet in the 5 with 3-0, who just ran a hole through the win last time and beat a nice horse in Mr. Narcissistic. So I just think, honestly, I think those are the 2 most likely winners. And if I get the 2 in the turf sprint, I think I'm getting a nice payout to any of them, if it is the 2 chalk. And then going into the last part, again, I refuse to believe Hall and Ice is going to get the distance. I don't care whatever magic staff he tries to pull off we always talk about this when he has all these horses, which are the ones that just don't do any running, or he sets it up for one of them. I don't think it matters. Hall and Ice can't get 7 furlongs anymore. So I'm going to use Claret Beret to hope that horse gets it done, or ideally for you and me, Kyle, Reputation gets it done. They're going to be the 2 classy horses sitting off Hall and Ice. And then again, we already talked a ton about Starship Impulsive, but horse has been in terrific form, seems to only be getting better, and I think is just another one that takes advantage of the right trip.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You mentioned a lot of stuff we've already talked about, but just the fact of, again, playing against Hall and Ice is really the main play in a lot of that, and trying to get a little bit of value with El Apagón. So good luck, Charlie. Your best bets. And as always, man, I know it's busy. Thanks for coming on. For coming on Gulfstream, we got to have you on as usual. Noah, your best bets in race number 9, a win, the number 3 Beach Colt. That's the 10-1 horse that you liked in there. And starting a pick 3 in race number 8, the 5 furlong turf sprint. You're going 2-4 with El Apagón and XY Speed, then 2-3-5 in race number 9, the Tapita sprint, going with Metro D, Beach Colt, and 3-0, and then singling number 8 in the Princess Ray, that being Claret Beret.
Kyle, not only did I capitalize my best bet like you told me to, I actually capitalized and included region that the horse was bred. So thank you very much.
My king.
I think the big bet for me on Saturday will be the pick 3 over on the right side. That's 2-4 with 2-3-5 with 8. It just seems like that first leg, it's either the horse that Charlie likes, El Apagón, wires that field, or the 1 and the 2 kind of duke it out, and it sets up for XY Speed. And then the middle leg is the race where I like the price, so I'll put a little win bet on him, but I'll include him in the pick 3 with both of your top choices. The 2, who I think ran big off the layoff last time, and then Charlie made a really good case for the 5. I've got him as well. And then the whole point of the pick 3 is just kind of try to get a inflated win price on Claret Beret, who's most likely the favorite, and there probably should be the favorite just based off figs and stuff like that. But just wouldn't be worth making a win bet. So trying to, parlay those legs, get an inflated win price on her, and hopefully she gets it done in the Philly Mare Sprint win and you're in. I believe we mentioned that, didn't we, Kyle?
No, I didn't. Is that a win and you're in?
Yeah, it is a win and you're in for the Philly Mare
Rooney? Nice. I did not know that, actually. So good. That's a host fail on my part. The second host picks it up from the show. That's why he has his own show now and is not left, in the wake with us. But either way, Noah, I like the pick 3 again, just trying to get an inflated win price on a horse that you like a lot in the number 8 Claret Beret. I'm going with 2 win bets easily, and being that the first 3 parts of the sequence that we covered are turf sprints and Tapita sprints, I had to look at least a little bit elsewhere for another win bet. I'm going double Safi, I guess, in this one. It's the race number 6. It's a handicap that we didn't cover. It's one of the 4 stakes races, though, that are on the card. I'm going with number 7, Roar of the Beast, Safi Edgard, 7-2 right now on the morning line. Obviously, we'll take a peek at what there actually is by post time. However, coming off a really nice run, 3 back, then ran to a mile 16th last time. And if Lightning Tones wins that race, the pace was at least a little bit decent.
I know my closers.
He looks to have it all his way there. So looks to get a nice price home there. And then race number 8, a win on Leo Toro, guys. If he sits with Starship Impulsive and he continues to improve, I really think Leo Toro has a big shot to win the last race in the Ginger Punch. Charlie, again, thanks so much for coming on, man. Greatly appreciate it. Always nice to have you on. And of course, you know, you are always welcome. No, I guess you're all right too. But as always, you know, with Bad being gone, being with, you know, refereeing and all that stuff, always appreciate you hopping on. And thanks to you for watching the podcast. Of course, without you, we wouldn't be able to do any of this. Lots of people in the chat all night long. So again, we greatly appreciate it. And we hope you come back for more on the HHH Racing Podcast. And if you do enjoy the podcast, hit the like button and hit the subscribe button below. We would greatly appreciate it. If you hit that little bell next to the subscribe button, you'll be notified every single podcast that's posted here on youtube.com/HHH Racing Podcast. But until next time, everyone, for my co-hosts, Noah Maher and Charlie Freeman, this has been your host, Kyle Roscoe, in episode 148 of Bettin N Boozin here on the HHH Racing Podcast, covering the Gulfstream Park late pick 5 for September 20th. And until next time, everyone, crush those bets, win those photos, and stay safe, everyone. We'll see you in the next one. Have a good night.